Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Liam. I am the Associate Director of the MBA Admissions and Recruitment team. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague from the Skoll Centre today. Claire, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Claire Joubert. I work in the Skoll Centre and manage the Skoll Scholarship, which I will tell you a little bit more about a bit later on in the webinar.
Thank you. Just a very quick piece of housekeeping, folks. If you can hear me okay, can you just type a quick yes into the questions box that you can see on your webinar software there for me, please? Just wait for some to come through. Marco, thank you. Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, great. Oh, Corinne, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you on here. We're going to spend the next 40 to 45 minutes or so just running through some scholarship options that we have here at the school in terms of the application process for some of those scholarships, a bit more detail in some of the funding options that are available to you, a little bit about other sources of funding, so maybe the university as a wider institution or some of its colleges, a little bit about the application system, if you're thinking about putting an application in for your MBA in the next stage, and we'll show you a few screens on there where the funding really comes into play, and then a little bit about deadlines and then questions from you towards the end. If you do have any questions, please can you send them through in the questions box as they come to you. If they're relevant to the slide that we're on, we'll address them straight away. We'll also have that set Q&A time towards the end of the 45 minutes. If you are thinking of submitting an application, we do have a few webinars that are coming up over the next few weeks that you might think about joining. There's one on January the 6th, which is specifically around application tips and how to submit a strong application to the program. So we do have a slide on application requirements today, but that really is just to give you a very brief outline on what we're looking for in terms of application to the MBA itself. This is not designed to go into a lot of detail about a strong application or those application requirements themselves. So let's get started. This is the business school. This is where we are today. This is where your MBA will be taught should you be successful in making an application. So your 9 to 5 working day will be spent predominantly in this building, and then you'll spend some of your time as an Oxford student in the college network. So 9 to 5, you'll be here, you'll then go home, you'll eat, you'll sleep, you'll socialize, you might join a club or society or a sports team, you'll network within that college environment. But this is the business school, and on site, we have a library, we have lecture theatres, we have some dining areas, we have some private study areas, everything that you can possibly need to cater for your MBA needs will be found here in the department of the university that is Saïd Business School. With regards to application requirements for the program, for the MBA itself, this is just a very brief overview of what we're looking for. An undergraduate degree, professional work experience, minimum of around 2 years. You will need a GMAT or a GRE score. We have no real preference as to which one you aim for, so pick whichever one suits your strengths in the most effective way. You'll be asked to provide 2 referees. One could be academic, one could be professional. It could be 2 of the same if you want to. We do have a new video assessment criteria this year for people looking to apply. That's simply 5 different questions, 4 of which will be done via video. So you'll record yourself on your webcam, on your built-in camera in your laptop, responding to some questions that you'll watch a pre-recorded video of one of my team members asking you that we recorded in a library format over the summer. There's a supporting statement, essentially just a short essay, 250 words of what you would like the admissions committee to know about you. That can be used for really anything at all. Some people use that statement to address a slightly lower GMAT or GRE score that they would have hoped for. Some people talk about an undergraduate degree performance that maybe isn't reflective of who they are now. Other people go into a lot of detail about a personal activity, a society, a club, or a sport, or a hobby that they enjoy to give us more of an insight into their personality. And other people talk about a passion that they have, the reason behind wanting to do an MBA or forge a career within a certain sector. So whatever your choice is, feel free to make that decision yourself. Whatever you would like us to know about you, that's really what that supporting statement is for. If English is not your native tongue, if you did not study a degree level qualification at an institution that used English as the sole medium of instruction, you may need to provide an English language proficiency test result, IELTS, TOEFL, that kind of thing. So it may not apply to everybody on the webinar, but if you're thinking, well, English is my second language and I didn't study in English, then there is a good chance that you will need to provide one of those test results as part of your application to the program. And all of these things on this screen must be ready to submit before the deadlines that we'll talk about in one of the later slides. So that's getting onto the program, but then what about scholarships and funding? And this screen shows a list of some of the options that are available to you. You'll notice that there's a blue or a red triangle, sometimes both, on some of these options. You can see on the left-hand side there what that signifies. Generally speaking, we split the scholarship options into two main pots of funding. Pot one is a Saïd Business School Foundation type scholarship. These foundation scholarships are decided solely by us here at the business school. We have final say on who gets them. We have final say on when they're given out, and they are awarded at every stage throughout the year. So if you're thinking, well, I was going to apply in stage 1 or stage 2, but the timing didn't work, I'll apply in stage 3, and some people maybe even stage 4. Does that mean that I don't have the chance of getting the scholarship? No, it does not mean that. We'll have money that we'll look to give out at every window. Obviously, there's a caveat there that because we hand them out from the beginning of the year, as the year progresses, those options might dwindle a little bit, but there is money to be awarded at every stage from that foundation pot of money that we control. The second pot of money are scholarship options that we manage in partnership with other organizations that are linked or attached to or work with the school or the wider university. So for example, Skoll, Claire is with us today to talk about Skoll in a couple of slides' time. The Skoll Scholarship is an example of one of these types of funding options where we work together with Skoll and they shortlist and they will then interview and they will then have the final say on who gets that money. Now, for these types of scholarship, the ones that we don't control completely here within the business school ourselves, there almost always is a deadline and maybe extra application requirements that you'll need to be able to qualify for these scholarships. So we'll go into more detail in a second, but for example, Skoll, you must apply by the January window to the MBA and include your Skoll essay in your application explaining why you think you are a good fit. So please be aware that one of your responsibilities when researching the funding options that are open to you is to make sure you understand which ones you qualify for, but also what expectations that the scholarship has with regards to extra application requirements. Is there an essay you have to write for that scholarship itself? Are you expected to attend an interview if you progress that far? Those kind of things are really worth looking into to make sure you're not taken by surprise or you don't miss out on your eligibility because you didn't realize there was a scholarship there. Roughly speaking, and I don't mind sharing these figures, we're looking at maybe anything between 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 people receive some form of scholarship from the school. That could be anything from £10,000 or £15,000 to offset some of the costs of tuition, all the way through to a scholarship that covers all of your tuition and will provide a partial living expense fund that allows you to pay for accommodation or pay for your living expenses while you're here for the year on the MBA, and lots of figures in between those two extremes. So it is competitive, please don't get me wrong, but we do try and make sure that we can allow that money to be spread over as many people as we can to ensure that the people that are looking to receive funding assistance that might not be able to attend without it, or the people that have the level of strength of profile that merit those larger scholarships, that as many people as possible can get some form of funding. So with regards to, we're going to go into detail about two of those particular scholarships now. Pershing Square is first. If people have an interest in the 1+1 program, this is going to be something that is very, very valuable for you to think about. So the 1+1 program, for people that may or may not be aware, it's a 2-year program. You do a 1-year master's degree of your choice in the wider institution in year 1. In year 2, you come to the business school and do the 1-year MBA. Part of the benefit of the 1+1 program is that it does have its own scholarship. It's the Pershing Square Scholarship, and it's designed to cover the full tuition and college fees of both of those courses for the 2 years. So your first year MSc and then your second year MBA, as well as a partial living expense allowance for both of those years. So if you're accepted into both programs, you'll be eligible for this scholarship, although you will also have to complete an essay and include the 1+1 scholarship essay at the time of your MBA application. So Pershing Square scholars will demonstrate the following. So academic achievement, we're looking for people with strong undergraduate degree results. We're looking for people with strong GMAT or GRE results. Leadership potential, demonstrated through experience and motivation. So you're probably already forging an impressive career for yourself before you join the school. Strong personal character, integrity, and commitment with an intention on focusing and addressing world-scale social challenges, either in your career, through an existing organization, or through development of a new enterprise. So it's not just for entrepreneurs. It can be somebody working for a large multinational, but looking to address those challenges. It's very important to show the ability to achieve scalable and sustainable solutions to those challenges. And there's a real need here to understand and let us see as well how the 1+1 will allow you to fulfill your career objectives. So thinking about that first year, whether it be a master's in public policy, a master's in social science of the internet, whatever your choice of subject for that first year, coupled with the MBA, why is that a compelling thing for you to do with your career? Why do you need both of those degrees? And therefore, why would you qualify for a scholarship that covers the tuition for both of those degrees? Just as a brief timeline, I can say that you'll need to apply to both of your programs by the respective January windows. And it is 2 very distinct applications, one to the department that runs your master's degree for the first year, and then an application to us here at the business school for your MBA. You'll need to be accepted into both of those to then be considered for shortlisting for the scholarship. The shortlisting happens around March or April. We'll often have first stage interviews around May, with a potential second stage interview if we need to filter that list a little bit more, sometime towards the end of May or beginning of June. So the announcement of who those Pershing Square scholars are is early summer, and we normally give about 5 people this scholarship. So the numbers are on your side. The quantity of 1+1 students we have in any intake will vary from maybe 10 to about 20. That's people either joining the MSc for their first year or joining us for their second year. It's about that number. And so 5 of 10 or even 5 of 20, it's a good number. It's a good conversation to be in with regards to chances of being offered the funding itself. So it is a relatively long process, but it is such a sizable funding option that it really is in your interests, if you think you qualify for this, to really do all that you can to make that shortlist. We're going to move on to the Skoll Scholarship now. Claire, if you're happy just to step in for me and cover a little bit about the Skoll Scholarship for me. Go ahead.
Great, thanks, Liam. Hi again, everyone. So just to run you through our Skoll Scholarship. So some kind of things to know first. As Liam mentioned earlier, you have to apply by the January deadline of stage 3, which is the 10th of January, so it is coming up. We do have 3 essay questions actually as part of the MBA application that you then have to answer, which go forward to our selection panel and form the basis then of our selection process for this scholarship. We do have two interviews should you be shortlisted and invited for those. They are held kind of from springtime onwards, and there's a first stage and then a final stage interview. Now, in terms of what the scholarship actually offers, it awards full course fees, so that covers your college fees and your tuition fees for the MBA, and also provides a partial living expense for your year whilst you're in Oxford, which is actually kind of, the payments are made 1 per term, so that helps with the living costs whilst you're here. Now, during the year, you'll get a number of opportunities that will come up to attend the Skoll Well Forum, for instance, and to meet other kind of social entrepreneurs, investors, etc. So there'll be many kind of many programs and talks and kind of activities you can get involved in during your year. But also what the scholarship then provides access to is our Skoll Scholar community. So this is a community now of over 70 alumni who have done their MBA, have been Skoll Scholars, and are now all across the world, either running their own businesses or kind of driving change from within organisations, and you become part of that community for life. So it's a kind of peer network. We hold an annual summit in Oxford once a year, so you have the opportunity to kind of connect with newer scholars, and it's a really kind of valuable and active community that that's a really kind of huge resource for you as you go further in your career. Now, in terms of what we're looking for in candidates for the scholarship, we're looking for applicants who can demonstrate kind of entrepreneurial action. And what we mean by that is that we want to see at least 3 years of entrepreneurial experience. And that might be that you have set up your own social venture, but it might also be that you have driven and created or kind of led initiatives from within an organisation, so taking that more entrepreneurial approach. So the scholarship certainly isn't only for founders of social enterprises. We look at social entrepreneurship as more of a kind of approach than an actual kind of definition of somebody who has to have set up a venture. The selection panel will also be looking for evidence that you can that you have demonstrated impact through your work, and that's particularly around kind of what you have done to address problems and within an actual system as well. So we can see that your work has a real focus on systems change. And we're also looking for people who can demonstrate those kind of personal qualities of a social entrepreneur. So again, this doesn't have to be that you have founded a company in any way, but just that you can show a kind of a bias toward action, that you have taken risks in some of your work, that you have that kind of tenacity and that drive for change. So that, again, it does not need to be through your own venture, but it does need to be that you kind of can show those characteristics and those kind of qualities. We also want to see that the MBA is coming at a point in time when it is absolutely kind of critical to your career, so that the MBA, you can demonstrate that would have a very kind of that would have a lot of impact in your career and you need it to then further your work. And whilst the MBA as well, the scholarship is merit-based, we do also ask to see if kind of what your financial circumstances are, so how you can demonstrate the financial need. So we ask, as part of the essay questions in the application, just for you to show that otherwise the MBA would be a significant financial burden, and that might be because you've started a venture or because you've been in the social impact space for most of your career. There is a lot more information online as well. I'm sure Liam will probably talk about that later, but hopefully that is helpful for now.
Thank you, Claire. For people that might be interested or think, oh, I might fit that profile, you can view some of the existing scholars and some of the scholars from the previous years on the Skoll website. So skollfoundation.org, you'll have a look there in terms of what activities you might be able to get involved with, a typical profile of some of the existing scholars, some of the work they're doing or looking to do post-MBA. So you can get a really good idea of what the Skoll Foundation are looking for in potential scholars. It's well worth your time, it's well worth understanding exactly what those requirements might be in real terms. Just one quick comment, just while on this slide. I've mentioned before those two different pots of funding, one that we control, one that we have in partnership with other people. For the ones that we control, the ones that do not need an essay and are given out throughout the whole year, there's nothing extra you have to do whatsoever in your MBA application. You're simply considered for all of those that you automatically qualify for as soon as you're admitted into the program. So there's nothing you have to do in terms of essays, there's no extra interviews for those, it's just the interview to get into the MBA itself. And that pot of money that we control here at the business school is then given out to the people that we think qualify. So there's nothing you have to do to put yourself forward to those. It's just Pershing Square or Skoll or a few other examples that need those extra essays that you want to be mindful of to make sure you don't miss any deadlines or you don't miss any components. We do have a search engine, so to speak, on our website that allows you to put in a few details about yourself with regards to nationality and gender and which program you're looking to study, and it will throw back a list of scholarships that you can qualify for. Now, this list will only include the ones that need that extra step, the essay or the interview for the scholarship itself, because as I've just mentioned, anything that you don't need that extra step for, you're automatically considered for when you apply to the program itself. So this is definitely worth doing to make sure that there's things out there that you think, oh, I didn't realize that was there. That could be an option for me. My profile seems to ring true with what they're looking for. Maybe I'll apply for this one too. So this is a very important part of your application process, but it won't give you a list of a huge number of scholarships because a lot of them we control ourselves and you qualify for automatically. But you can find it on our graduate website at the university, and it takes you through to a page a lot like this, and this is just a screen grab of that page. So you would fill out these drop-down menus, making sure that you're picking the right year, you pick the right subject area, say your business school. Do you want to search for scholarships? Well, yes. Have you started your course already? No. Choose your nationality or your country of residence. If you hold multiple nationalities or multiple citizenships, you can search for each one of them, but you'll have to do each search one at a time. Don't pick a college yet. You picking your college is part of the application process after you've been interviewed for the MBA, so you won't know at this stage which college you might belong to, so just leave that as any. That will come back with some results of which courses the business school runs. So pick the MBA, the one-year MBA, if that's your choice. That will show you the course fees and recommended living costs in that table below. Once you've done that, this is the results page that you'll see. So again, as a screen grab, you can see that second one down, that's the Skoll scholarship that we're talking about. It talks a little bit about what they're looking for, and clicking on the name of the scholarship will hyperlink you through to confirmation of what you need to do to apply for the scholarship itself. So this is a really useful exercise for you to go through as you think about maybe applying to the program, just with regards to making sure you are aware and allowing yourself to be considered for as many different funding options or scholarships as possible. Now, the application portal where you'll actually apply to the program, this is the front page. You'll see returning applicants can log in to carry on their application, or if you're applying for the first time or you haven't started your application yet, you can create an account, and that will take you through to this page, which is kind of your home page when you apply to the MBA. On the left-hand side, you'll see a list of all the things that we look for with regards to your test scores, your employment history, your essay or your supporting statement. And that is the funding tab that you will click on that takes you through to the portal that allows you to upload the essays that you want to be considered for each of those different types of scholarships. So at the bottom, again, using Skoll as an example, you can see that this is where you would choose the file stored locally, probably on your laptop, on a USB drive somewhere, where you've written the essay. This is how you attach that to your application. Similar to the other scholarships that require an essay or extra materials to be considered. So this is within your application portal. You're starting your MBA application. This is how you get the essay to us to be considered for each of these scholarships. And again, just to reiterate here, folks, the essays for the scholarships, they need to be included with your application to the program, to the MBA itself. So it's not separate. Please don't think, I'll apply to the MBA, I'll wait to see if I get an interview, and if I get an offer of a place, I'll then send my scholarship essay. It really does have to be all at the same time. There is a real danger that if you don't get your Skoll scholarship essay to us in the January window, even if you apply to the MBA and you're admitted, if you haven't completed the scholarship essay, you will not come into the shortlisting conversation when Skoll look at everyone that has applied for the funding. So please make sure that is a very, very important part of your application, that it's not just submitting your application to the program, it's also making sure you've completed all of the required essays for each one of those funding options. There are a couple of things that you'll have to tick the box for. So Weidenfeld-Hoffmann, for example, has a box that you tick, and it has an essay that you have to upload. So these three particular scholarships have an essay, but also you must tick this box. Skoll isn't on here, Pershing Square isn't on here, just the essays for those. But these three have those two different components. Please tick the box and also upload your relevant essay. So application deadlines, as you can see, we are halfway through our 4-stage program for this year. Stage 2 applications were completed and we've interviewed them over the last few weeks. They had an email from us on Friday with news of their outcome. And so we're now closing down stage 2 and thinking about stage 3, which, as Claire mentioned earlier, and you can see on screen, is January the 10th in the new year. So this is the deadline that you must hit if you want to be considered for scholarships like Skoll, like Pershing Square, like Weidenfeld-Hoffmann. They all have this deadline that you must be in the MBA by or before to be considered. The pot of money that we control 100% here at the school will be given out still in April. That is definitely an option. But those named scholarships, the ones that will often cover all of your tuition and a partial living expense, will almost always have this stage 3 deadline. So this is a very important stage if you are considering that funding is going to be a real factor for you in terms of you attending the MBA here at Oxford. As I mentioned before, we do have that application tips webinar on January the 6th. So if you're worried about how do I make my application as strong as it can be, then that is the one that you'd want to dial in to listen to. There is an email address that I'll share with you at the end of this webinar that will allow you to send my team any concerns or questions about the application process. Who do you want to use for your referees? Will you have your GMAT, your GRE score in time? Those kind of normal application questions that we get every window. We're happy to field those. Just send them through to the email address that I'll share with you at the end. So next steps, research your options. That search engine that I mentioned a few slides ago, it's a really useful tool for you to understand which ones are open, but which ones are also a good fit for your profile, and allows you to, again, understand what requirements you need to do in terms of extra essays. This webinar is being recorded, so we'll send the recording out to everyone that's registered in the next 24 or 48 hours. So have a listen to this again if there's anything that you've missed. And this is the email address that I was talking about. So if you have any general questions around your application, around your profile and whether it fits for any of the scholarships, we are very happy to help with that conversation. Just email us at the Oxford MBA address you can see on screen. Just worth bearing in mind, successful candidates to the program will be emailed normally at the end of that window. So for example, stage 2, November, we've just emailed everyone on Friday with the good news of who's being admitted onto the program. There is then a separate meeting by the admissions committee to understand who we would like to offer a scholarship to. So sometimes those two pieces of news can be quite separate. You'll get an email from the admissions committee about your application to the MBA. You'll then have an email in the following week about any funding options that have been awarded to you as well. So please don't be too disheartened if you get your acceptance onto the MBA, but there's no scholarship news. Those emails often are quite separate anyway. The good news is, once you've received an offer, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, all the way through to stage 4, we always consistently get different funding options that come up throughout the year. We had a new scholarship that only became available in March or April of this calendar year, which we weren't expecting, but became available, so we were happy to give it. Your name is under consideration for all scholarships for the rest of that academic cycle as a whole. So if you're in stage 2 and you've just got the good news that you've been admitted and you're thinking, well, what about scholarships? You might hear news this week. You might hear news in January. You might not hear news until maybe March, April, or May, because we're constantly looking at the funding options we have and how we can ensure that as many people as possible can get some scholarship support. You'll also have access to our internal intranet. You'll be an admitted student to the MBA, which gives you access to some of those systems. There's a news bulletin board on that system that allows you to see what new scholarships have been signed off and agreed as the year progresses. There is a very strong possibility that even if you're not successful with funding in the window that you apply straight away, then you can later on in that year receive some other funding from us as more becomes available. So we do have a level of flexibility that we'll happily give you in terms of your deposit confirmation and securing your place. Generally speaking, we'll say 30 days of the email from us saying, congratulations, you're admitted onto the program, is by when you have to pay your deposit and secure your place. However, if you're applying for Pershing Square or for Skoll, and you know you won't hear back about being shortlisted or interviewed for those funding options until maybe April, sometimes May, we can very happily extend your deposit deadline so that you can wait to see if you've been successful with your scholarship application before you have to pay that non-refundable deposit. So just keep that line of communication open with us. If you think you might need more time than that standard 30 days, give us a reason why, but we're almost always very happy to extend all the way through, if we need to, kind of the end of May, beginning of June, by which point we have to get a final yes or no from you, because there's some paperwork you have to fill out and just some internal processes that we have to do to make sure that the college is accepting you in time for starting your course in September. But generally speaking, we have lots of flexibility with regards to our deposit deadline that we are happy to extend to you. And that's it. Guys, that's the end of our webinar. We have a good 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to mute the microphone for a moment, see what questions have come through, and I'll be back with you in just a few minutes to address those questions and provide some answers. So thank you for joining us so far. Please stick around. We'll have some answers back with you in a few minutes, but if you do have to run, please don't worry. As I mentioned, it's being recorded, and we'll send you a link in a couple of days. So I'm going to disappear just for 90 seconds or so, but I'll be right back with you in just a moment. Hello everyone, thanks again for sticking with me. I've got some questions coming through, so thank you for sending them through. If you have any others, please do keep them coming. A couple of them are on a similar vein. So Zoe and Samantha, thank you. It's nice to see you on here, folks. You're saying if you are thinking of 1+1 or Skoll and you're applying for those, does it mean that you are also eligible for other scholarships? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So it might not be ones that you've specifically applied for yourselves, like those ones that have required an essay. It might be the ones that we have internally that we look at giving for every window. But your name will be included in those conversations too. So you are not excluding yourself from those scholarships, or at least the potential of those scholarships, by applying for some of those named scholarships. So yes, you're in consideration for those. We had a question around the advice that I would give about funding and scholarships if a key input into accepting your place in the course is linked to that. And I think what I'm hearing is, would I accept, or would I recommend that you accept your application before you know if you're going to get a scholarship? And that can be a bit risky because the deposit is a non-refundable deposit. And so if you pay it, we think you're coming, and you won't get that back if you then decide not to. And it's a good chunk of money, everyone. It's over £8,000 to secure your place. That's taken off your cost of tuition when you get here, but it is non-refundable. So if you think that you need a certain level of funding or certain level of scholarship to be able to afford to come, we are very happy for you to delay that deposit decision until you know for sure whether you have received the funding you need or not. And that might not be until April, May, June, that really kind of final deadline. And that's okay, because we know that some people are waiting for the end of the academic cycle, the recruitment cycle, to understand exactly what offer is on the table, what funding does come with that offer. And so my advice, if you think that funding is a very integral part into accepting, is to wait as long as you can to understand exactly what level of funding we can give you. Because I would hate for someone to pay a non-refundable deposit and maybe gamble on the fact that he or she might be given a level of funding they're hoping for, and then find out that they're not, and then aren't able to fund the rest of the tuition costs, the rest of the MBA, because, as I mentioned, you will not get that deposit back, I'm afraid. So take as much time as you need to make sure you have the financial position that you're looking for to be able to come. And we can definitely extend that for as long as you want us to. We had a question around the importance of the GMAT in the overall application and decision for scholarship. So two different things. If you look on our website, I would say the recommended GMAT score that we advise you to achieve is around 650, or the equivalent on the GRE. That's what we call a competitive score for admission. What I would say is that the scholarships that look at academic merit or academic strength will be given normally to people with a very good score for their particular region. And we see some regional differences here. So it might be for certain parts of the world where GMAT scores are traditionally quite high, you might need more than a 700 to be awarded a scholarship. For parts of the world that maybe traditionally those scores are a little bit lower, it might be something around 680 or higher might be enough for a scholarship. There's nothing really that I can guarantee is a GMAT score that will get you some money, because obviously it depends on who you're up against and who else might be applying in the same window. It's an obvious thing to say, of course, but aim for as high a score as you can, because the GMAT will factor into both of those decisions. In the application process, it's just one of several things we look at. It's by no means the only thing that has the weight to potentially make or break your application, but it is an important part of your application. Some of those scholarships are merit-based, academic merit-based, and so your undergraduate degree, your GMAT score, are the real signs that you can show us of how good you are academically, and therefore for the scholarship question, the GMAT can be significantly more important than actually being admitted onto the program in the first place. With regards to the GRE equivalent of a 700 on a GMAT, Joe, thanks for your question. Thank you for putting me on the spot. I would say anything around a 163, 164 in both the verbal and the quant would be about a 700 thereabout. So that's kind of the figure you're aiming for on the GRE. Now, one of those can be a little bit higher and a little bit lower. Maybe a 166 verbal, 162, 163 quant, any combination that will give you about a combined 328 or above on the GRE is probably going to be enough to be a 700 equivalent on the GMAT. There are some very handy GRE to GMAT conversion tools available on the internet. It's worth having a look just to make sure that those numbers aren't too far off. I don't want to give you an incorrect summary, especially when I'm trying to work that out in my head, Joe, so I'm sorry if that's not quite. Great, let's see what any of the questions have come through. So we've had a question about the Weidenfeld-Hoffmann Scholarship and Leadership Program that wants students that intend to return back to their home country. Yes, that's an important part of it. Do they mean immediately or eventually? Is this mandatory or ideal and recommended? Honestly, I would say nothing in the scholarship profiles is mandatory. It's kind of an ideal profile of the scholar or the type of scholar that those organizations are looking for. I would say with regards to when you return to your home country, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately upon graduation, but it has to form part of your plan, your mid to long-term vision. And you'll be asked to talk about that mid to long-term vision on your Weidenfeld-Hoffmann essay. So be prepared to talk about that. If you're looking to move to another country or another part of the world and you have no clear plans to return, then that might preclude you from being considered for that scholarship. Okay, folks, I think that's probably all of the questions that we've had. Hopefully we've addressed everything that you've wanted to get to the bottom of, but again, that email address is available to you should you want to go ahead and use it. Let me just go back one slide so you have that on the screen again. Please do send any questions through to that general inbox and either myself or one of my team will respond to you as soon as we can. If you're considering applying for the program in stage 3 or later on in this year in stage 4, then I wish you the best of luck. Let us know if you have any questions either about your application or your suitability for scholarships. And in the meantime, just reach out with any questions or concerns or anything at all that we can help you with. So it's just left to me to say thank you again for joining me today. It's been great to be able to speak to you and to answer some of your questions. I hope to see some applications come through in the next few weeks. But that's goodbye from me, and Claire, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Liam, and thank you, everyone.
And we'll hopefully speak to you soon. Thanks again, and bye for now.